Hi, this is Jim Cranston from 7 Every Minute and 7everyminute.com, the podcast by and about reimagining your life. So thanks for joining me tonight to talk about what does retirement look like now. And so I'm going to go over probably kind of a review of what's going on in the latest statistics and stuff, both for baby boomers and Gen Xers, primarily baby boomers at this point. Um, but it's also a little bit of review about the podcast. As always, if you like what you hear, please leave me a like, send me a message, and if you don't, send me a message anyway. Tell me what you want to hear about. So, apologize. Today was just kind of a funny sort of day. And before I forget, happy Valentine's Day Eve. I hope you have someone in your life tomorrow who you can tell that you appreciate and care for, whether it's romantic or not. But I always kind of take Valentine's Day in the general sense that anyone who I appreciate, like people at the office and stuff like that, I always make sure that they always feel good because you never know, as we always say, if you caring for yourself is really caring for others. You never know what somebody else's day is like. So if you just say, "Hey, hope you're having a good day. Happy Valentine's Day," hopefully you can cheer them up a little bit. So today was a little bit of a train wreck, as it were. Work ran late, and then just things around the house didn't go well. I went to go for a quick walk before because I try and walk every day, and took a look at the car and realized I had left the dome light on inside the interior light. So then I went to get the battery charger to charge up the battery and realized that the light bulb in the garage had burned out, so I had to replace that. So it was just that kind of sort of day. It was just a lot of pretty funny, humorous sorts of things. It all ended well. Cars going, everything's worked. Light bulbs replaced. Light bulb lasted actually 5 days, 4 days short of 25 years on one light bulb. So I was pretty pleased with that. But I've been thinking about doing for a couple of weeks, thinking about doing a review of the origins of 7 Every Minute. I do that every now and again for people that haven't joined us in a while. But then also saw a story entitled "A Milestone Loses Its Meaning," and it's talking about retirement and how many people are turning 65. And so it was kind of interesting on a different couple different levels, and it's really talking about what does turning 65 mean now, and what are the ramifications. And in the good old days, and our parents, and certainly our grandparents, but not even our parents' age, if you were still working at 60, it was kind of unusual. Just the health timetable was a little bit different, and lives weren't quite as long generally, and a lot of the labor was much more physical. But now a lot of people, very many people, are still working at 60 or 65 and even older. And so, for me, that the biggest takeaway from the story and the statistics is retirement really now means doesn't mean getting 65 doesn't mean retirement per se, but it's really kind of for many people just the next phase of life, which it shouldn't be news to us. We've been saying that for almost 5 years now, but it's finally dawning on a lot of people, happily, that when you hit a magic number, it's not that your life suddenly just loses meaning or whatever, but it's just the next phase of what and how you're going to live. So that brings us back to remember why did I start 7 Every Minute? And some of you may recall that it was really to teach people about Medicare. That's what it really started off as. And that's still a worthwhile goal, but really that kind of deserves a podcast all its own with experts, because it's really a very involved subject, like I mentioned before, very state by state in a lot of ways. And it's a really big thing. It's a very important thing. And hopefully, we'll get back to that at some point. But and thinking about Medicare more, right? The only thing that's really changed is that Medicare has actually become, in many ways, it seems simpler, but it's really more complex because you have all these plans, and the plans look almost the same, but they have these little differences. And if you could tell the future, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. If you could tell the future, make it really easy to which plan you wanted to pick. But since you can't, it's just kind of a lottery as to which plan you take, and a lot of them had a lot of big holes in it, which is why things like the Advantage plans are so inexpensive, because they don't really cover a lot of things that you may find that you need. And then also, a lot of them have caps on it. So if something really serious happens, then things don't work out so well for you in the Advantage plans. And we'll talk about that another time in depth. But I think the major takeaway from that, and like I say, I know it's a big topic, and so I don't want to get all wrapped up in that, but I've seen in the news recently a lot of the major insurers are either pulling back their involvement or pulling back the benefits in their Advantage plans or selling out to other people completely. It turns out Medicare is offering less money for that, and so a lot of the perks that they offered, I remember seeing some Advantage plans actually where not only did it cost you nothing, but they would send you like $15 a month if you signed up for their plan. Those sorts of perks are probably going away for good. And so, but that's again another huge topic that we'll talk about another time. Back to the podcast. The podcast then transitioned to kind of like I covered major news stories and events, and that was actually a lot of fun. It was a longer podcast then. It usually ran about a half hour to 45 minutes, sometimes even close to an hour. And I would just pick things that I thought would be of interest to people of our generation, our ages. And there were a lot of good times, right? And there's a lot of activity and a lot of interest, and it was all a lot of fun. But alas, it was also very time consuming for me and quite costly. And so it really wasn't poised for long-term operation, unless I won the lottery, which I did not. So that we had to transition away from that a little bit. But that interaction with people kind of led me into the whole coaching side of the world. And I'd been involved with that before, but talking to people and talking to a lot of people made me realize that there's real opportunity there, that a lot of people had things as they approached retirement of basically kind of their self-image was changing and they didn't know what it was supposed to change into. Is probably the shortest way to say it. And so that's what's been the focus of the coaching. If you think about it, it's reimagining and re-envisioning your life, and then how to set goals to support that, and then how to work towards those goals so that your life is changing. It's not the end of things. It's just going on to the next phase. And like I said, I was really pleased that the story that I saw really kind of emphasized that aspect of it. And I'm glad that more and more people are becoming aware of that. And so getting into the coaching side led me to meet even more great people. So all that has been really good. So back to the topic of what does retirement actually mean? That was kind of the 5-minute version of how the podcast got to where we are. But what does the topic of retirement really mean now? Well, first off, when we started, there were about 10,000 of us retiring every day, and that's where the name came from. That 10,000 figure is actually about 6.9 people a minute, hence the name 7 every minute. But currently, it turns out that figure people hitting 65 is now about 11,200 people a day. That's about 7.8 people a minute. So the name still works, but the figures are even up, and it's going to be up. They said, the one source I read said this year, next year, and maybe the year after, even still. So again, big influx into that next phase of our life, part of life. And so I think it's even more important and more relevant that we all really kind of refocus ourselves on what this means. When you're talking to your friends, whatever, they're moaning, I come across this a lot. And I love it because for me, it's just an opportunity. They say, no, I understand what you're saying, but you're missing a lot of good stuff. And people say, no, getting old, it's not good. I hurt, I this, I that, and everything else. It's kind of, so what are you doing? Well, nothing really. Well, what do you think you could do? And get them thinking about things they could do. And when they start thinking about that, then they stop thinking about all the things that they don't like about being older. And they start seeing all the things that are good about being older. We've talked about this a lot. I'm not going to go over it here again now. But we talked about the experience that you have, the skills that you've learned, the people that you've met, the opportunities you realize exist for you. So those are all good things. And so you, as somebody who listens to me, has the opportunity when your friends start talking like that, say, hey, you could either listen to this guy, he's talking about all the things you can do with your life, or you can just say, hey, here's some things you can do with your life. You don't need me to tell your friends, be all you can be. You're getting older, things are changing, different opportunities are opening up. We've talked about it. You gain new superpowers. It's not like you just lose everything. You gain new superpowers, something to keep in mind. So, but an interesting statistic out of that story was in 2023, nearly 20% of the people 65 and older were still employed, almost double the number from 35 years ago. So 20% of the people are still working. And out of that 20%, 2/3 of them are working full time. So really, the age of retirement, no matter what is stated, and no matter what you have to go on Medicare and all those other things, and when I say have to go on Medicare, there's exceptions to that. Don't take that as a rule. Okay, but you have to sign up for Medicare. That is a rule. But so you have these people who have turned 65 and they're not even slowing down. They're still working full time. And matter of fact, I know a couple people who just in our age group, close, and one of them is older than myself. Not only is he still working, he changed careers to a higher position. So a lot of people are just looking at how they're running their life differently. So that's a pretty interesting change of how things have happened over the past 10, 15, 20 years. However, one of the other statistics that was really fascinating is on the surface is that people now have almost 50% more savings. And savings they actually talk about, I just want to make sure I get the right term. They talk about they're being wealthier, they have more financial reserves, but what it really is their total net worth. And what makes up much of that is their house. And so the interesting thing about that is they have this on paper net worth, but unless you do a reverse mortgage, and that's another whole huge discussion, that money, yes, it's there, but it's tied up in a single thing. So unless you sell it and move, and with the housing prices high all around, that gets very complex. So it's an interesting number, it's an interesting statistic, and the actual numbers, if you're interested, are it is the net worth of those 65 to 74 years old is $410,000 in 2022, which is up from $282,270 in 2010, and those are adjusted, inflation-adjusted numbers, so they're on the same basis. So it sounds like a great increase, but in reality, I'm curious if you just took the cash net worth of people, if they're better off now or better off before. So it's one of those things that statistics are interesting, but they often don't tell you very much. The other thing that's interesting and unfortunate is the divorce rate is nearly triple that from 1990. So, that's kind of a mixed situation depending on the situation you're in. But it's interesting because it also ties in that these days most people can live to being nearly 85 years old. So there's a much more active, older social life going on too. So there's just a lot of things that have changed over the past few years. So what does all this mean? Well, to me, the biggest thing that comes out of it is that 85 years old number, and that health on average, they talk about people generally now are healthier. That means that, heck, we still have a lot of time to recreate our lives, to start something new, to define our vision, and really live our life the way we want. It's far different. I mean, I remember certainly one of my aunts, I think she was like 75, and maybe she was like 70, and her brother lived with her, and he was like 73 or something. And they were like some of the most ancient people I knew. And now that's nothing. I mean, yes, obviously a lot of people have passed away, which is very unfortunate, but a lot of people have not, far more than in the past. So rather than looking at this as kind of the end of things, it's really truly is the next phase of things. And even more exciting is with a lot of the medical breakthroughs that have happened is there are new things being discovered every day. I get a lot of, I'm an engineer by trade, as I mentioned before, and so I get a lot of very technical magazines, and some of them are in the healthcare field, a lot of them in things that, although they're not directly medical treatments, allow medical treatments to happen that couldn't have happened not only 20 years ago, not only 5 years ago, 1 year ago, 18 months ago. New ways of doing surgeries, new ways of identifying viruses, new ways of treating cancer. Right now, the advances that are coming along are just mind-boggling. And so we have all this opportunity, and most likely we'll be able to live our lives in a way that we are generally healthier and what can be more active and be less confined. So it's really, to me, the big takeaway of all this is, as we've been saying right along, what has our message been? It's that we have and are capable of making as much of the rest of our lives as we'd like to. Will some things change? Obviously. But we have more opportunity now than probably any generation before us that we know of, realistically. I mean, people just are living longer, they're living better lives, they have more choices to be healthy if they want to. And so to me, it's a very upbeat article. I'm not sure what the tone of the article is meant to be, if they had a presumption of the tone they were trying to hit. But to me, if you look past some of the negative statistics, there's a lot of opportunity for all of us. And it may not always be super easy to do what we want, but it'll usually be exciting and it'll usually be satisfying. And best of all, the rewards, right? They'll often be different and a lot greater than you expected. So as always, ignore all the silly negative generalizations that you hear and anyone talking, oh, this generation is that, this generation, whatever, right? Use your own internal strength to make the most of your life. And when do we start? We talked about this couple episodes now. The best time to start is to start today. Don't talk about what you're going to do next year. Don't talk about what you're going to do. Oh, if I'll start exercising if I stop smoking. Oh, I'll stop eating candy if I join the gym. Whatever. Just whatever you want to do, just start doing. I think I want to take a trip maybe next year. Start looking right now. And your mind, as we talked about often, wants to keep you safe, and it does that by doing the same thing tomorrow that you did today. And probably if you do that, tomorrow is going to be a lot like today. And if you want to get your life to someplace different, then you're going to have to do something different. And one of the ways to do that is to just say, this is important to me, and it's important enough to start doing it right now. So that's it for the evening. Just a quick recap, kind of what's going on in our generations, a quick look back at the podcast over the past 5 years. And surprise, tonight, no homework assignment. Well, unless you want to think about what happened in the last 5 years, then think about all the great things you can do with the coming 5 years. So that's it. Thank you very much. And thanks for joining me tonight. I know it's a little different than normal, but as always, and of course we can't forget, UKR7.com for the war in Ukraine, and of course war Israel, Palestine, lots of things going on in the world right now. All need our attention, WCK.org. If you don't want to be involved in a conflict, WCK.org supports people across the world with food donations in disaster situations, an awesome organization. And if you're just not in a, well, if you don't want to support somebody not near you, of course, I'm sure if you look around, there's people around you who can use financial or just your own personal help, just showing up and helping out with something. And if that's just not what you're able to do or what you're in the mood to do right now, that's totally fine as well. Remember, just seeing somebody smile and say, hey, hope you have a good day. Just that can turn somebody's day around. The best way, as we always talk about, the best way to care for yourself is to care for others. And if you look outside yourself, it gives you a whole different perspective on the world. So that's it for the evening. Remember to live the life that you dreamed of, because that's the path to true contentment. Love and encouragement to everybody. See you next week on 7 Every Minute and 7everyminute.com. Thank you.